Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Justin with AmericanTrucks.com, and today I have the pleasure to talk to Gary about his 2016 F-150. Now, a brief rundown on Gary's setup. It is a 2016 F-150 with an 18 by 9 inch fuel Anza wheel in matte black. It's got that anthracite ring, plus 1mm offset, giving him that nice flush stance. Tire is the 35-12-50 R18 Nitto Ridge Grappler, and then making that tire possible is the Rough Country 4-inch suspension lift kit. It's got some Fox coilovers on there, along with a 4-inch rear block and air lift setup. So a lot to talk about here, Gary. Let's start with the most basic question. Why did you choose this setup for your 2016?
This is probably about the third or fourth truck I've worked on. Strangely enough, I was kind of thinking I'd been into a Jeep for a while for the past many years and thinking about getting back into a truck. I actually saw a video here on American Trucks. I think it might have been you. It was called something about make your F-150 look like a Raptor. So that's a great idea. I really love that. So I started making notes and all the things I wanted to do. Maybe something even a little bit beyond that. I guess if I had to pick a theme for this, I called it the heavy duty Raptor.
So again, we're gonna get right into the wheels here. Again, we got the fuel Anza. Again, 18 by 9 inch plus 1mm offset, which I know is gonna give that flush stance. What was it about the fuel in particular that drew you to the Anza?
Yeah, so I think really for me, I was really looking for a black wheel, right? But I love the beadlocks look, and I wanted that light aluminum-ish, style. When you throw in the 18 by 9 requirements, for an F-150, you kind of get down into narrow choices. But I was so happy to find that the fuel, the Anzas, were exactly what I was looking for. That anthracite or light aluminum-looking bead, and it was an aggressive-looking wheel, and it was just perfect, absolutely perfect rim. So there was no decision after that.
Let's talk about the offset choice. Plus 1mm offset. Again, not super poked out, but also not really sunken in either. What was it about the 1mm offset that made you go with it?
Yeah, I think I knew that I was going to go with a larger tire, which we'll probably talk about. So the tire is pretty wide already. I knew I was going to have some poke out, which I was going to take care of with some fender flares, but I didn't want to go too, so aggressive that you're slinging mud all over the truck, etc. So trying to keep it in just enough so that when I put the pocket flares on, it was flush. So I started with the offset and the tire, and I said, okay, there's where we are.
Overall, has it been, pleasurable? There's no chipping, weird fitment, any issues like that?
They fit perfect. I mean, I guess what I love about the fuel wheels is that they are just really well built. I've had them off and on so many times, et cetera, doing different things, and but they've been extremely durable. I haven't noticed any kind of chipping or flaking or anything like that. So and I've put it through some pretty harsh environments, so it looks great.
I think that wheel almost kind of looks like the OE beadlock wheel that Ford had for the
Exactly.
17 Raptor, and I think it really helps nail that styling even further. Is that something you had in your mind going into it?
Absolutely. To be frank, I kind of started, I looked at a Raptor rim first, but for the size of wheel, a tire, and everything that I wanted to go, you really couldn't get a Raptor, an OEM Raptor rim to be exactly that. So the little more aggressiveness that I wanted, the fuel Anzas were just perfect.
Well, speaking of Raptors, we know that truck basically comes with a 35. You have a true 35, the 35-12-50 R18 Ridge Grappler. I'm about to put that on my truck. Spoiler alert, I've heard great things. I'm coming from a trail grappler. Talk to me about your experience so far with the Ridge Grappler. Did I make the right choice?
I think you did. I'll tell you why. I've had a lot of experience with their Nitto Grappler series. I think on my F-250, I did the Terra Grapplers, which was more of a road tire. Then I went to the Jeep, and I went to the other end of the spectrum, the Trail Grapplers, which are it's a 35, a very aggressive tire, right? Which is great for the Jeep. But for this build, I said, what's there in the middle between that road thing and the trail grappler? And, so then they had these, the Ridge Grapplers. And I was like, wow, that is like the perfect balance between the two. The Ridge Grapplers have been fantastic. Yeah. You get some of the road noise, but I mean, surprisingly, compared to some of the other brands, the Nittos, for some reason, are somewhat quieter. And I tell you, more to me, it was about the durability. I think I've had these particular ones on now for close to 20,000 miles, and they're still in great shape, which is very surprising to me. So they're a great tire.
What about ride quality? Because a lot of times guys step up to a big tire like that, they might experience mixed feelings on the ride quality. What's your experience been like with the Ridge Grapplers?
Yeah, actually, I think these were the 3512. So it's a fairly it's got a big sidewall, right? So I found that if for the most part for just mileage, I keep them aired paired up kind of on the higher end of the spectrum. But for the most part, I found that they are extremely comfortable tire. They handle very well. There's no squirreliness about them, and just the quality of the ride is, I couldn't tell any difference between that and OEM. So it was really good.
Now, you obviously stepped up pretty big here as far as size is concerned compared to OE. Did you recalibrate your truck, or did you tune your truck for, accounting for the larger tires?
I did, absolutely. So I went with I had a Bully Dog tuner, went in and changed the ratios and et cetera. So it's running with some GPSs and stuff, and doing some fine tuning there with the digital, and works out perfect. So my speedometer is absolutely perfect. But yeah, I think I would recommend to somebody, if they were going to go to a tire of this size, you get a fairly large discrepancy on your speedometer. So whether you do it yourself or you have a shop do it, yeah, it's I highly recommend you get that done.
Let's move into the biggie, because this one, you got a lot going on. Suspension, we got the rough country. You started off with the 4-inch lift. You added the Fox coilovers. I believe you have the Mammoth 4-inch block in the rear, correct?
That is correct,
and,
yes.
And then we're also got some airlift going on in the rear as well?
Absolutely. A little bit kind of an afterthought for another purpose, but yeah, I did add an airlift.
All right, so let's break this down, man. Like, why did you go with this? Give me your whole journey with the suspension, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think, of course, suspension, like with anything, you agonize over not high enough, I've gone too high, et cetera. And I think I think at the end of the day, when I looked at the kind of the size of the truck and knowing the size 35s, et cetera, what I was going to be able to clear and just look appropriate, 4-inch seemed just kind of the sweet spot for that. It was aggressive, but not over the top. Once I had picked the height, I really wanted to make sure, having done lifts in the past, and you get much over 3 inches and you start getting maybe some geometry issues, et cetera. So I really wanted a suspension lift, not just a, spacer type lift or whatever. So, so the rough country suspension kits, they're fantastic. They have, they keep all the appropriate geometry, with your suspension, for all the proper angles, et cetera. And as well as this is the upgraded components like beefier lower knuckles and things like that. You end up with a much stronger suspension, especially on the front. Obviously, it's a little bit one of the more harder DIY ones, so I've done DIY ones like this. I'll be honest, I had a shop. I bought this one. I had a shop install it just because they could do the alignment afterwards.
Sure.
Right there. And but that yeah. So that was my choice. I really wanted the suspension lift. I wanted to be heavy duty, and wanted that height. So that narrowed it all down to that particular lift.
Talking about, again, I think going back to that Raptor styling that you really wanted to achieve, you got some Fox coilovers on this thing, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. You can get the rough country, kind of in multiple flavors, right? You can get kind of just the basic kit with either no shocks, or you can get it with some shock. I decided to get the basic kit and then choose an upgraded struts and shocks. So Fox 2.0 coilovers up in front, Fox 2.0 shocks into the back. I like the adjustability aspect of it. You can kind of, so you can choose a little bit if you really want to choose that ride quality a little bit. You can give a little bit of dialing in, but added to that 4-inch, it's really helped. It's a little stiffer, but it's helped maintain a little bit more of that OEM ride quality. I've loved the Fox series of shocks and struts, so that was a great choice. I really chose to stick with that brand. Yeah.
That stiffer, I guess, on-road ride, that probably translates to some slightly better off-road performance, I'd imagine, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that was the other my thing too, is that if I'm trying to do that Raptor, heavy-duty Raptor thing, this isn't just the streetable truck, right? This is the truck that I can take it some pretty rough places.
Why the decision to add the lift blocks and then that airlift setup in the rear?
So the lift actually comes with a 2-inch block. I tend to carry some tools and some stuff in the back of the truck, which it's not a lot, but when you start adding 200 pounds back there as a daily on a daily basis, you start changing the stance a little bit. So you go from what started out as a level stance, now it's maybe creeping down an inch or two in the back. So I decided to, I think for me, the best option was just to drop the 2-inch block, went on AT and got the 4-inch Mammoth. Super easy to swap out, jack it up, drop the axle, pop it out, pop the others in, set it back in. It's really, that's a pretty easy swap.
Any future plans to change any of the setup up there at all with suspension, wheels, tires?
I guess if I looked at a couple things, I've been looking at like maybe a new hood, a Ram, air scoop hood. That might be one just from aesthetic aesthetic purposes. But I guess if I had to really throw it out there, you know, the Whipple supercharger.
Now you're talking.
That's kind of my the cherry on top that I keep. I probably click on once or twice a day and look at.
It's been on quite a journey. You got a lot going on. Is there anything maybe you would have done differently the first time around?
I think I agonized over it long enough, and you know, I watched so many videos, you know, here on this channel, watching other builds and everything, the other build videos from customers, watching what they went through. There's nothing major though that I can really think of that I would have changed. So it's really turned out good. You know, I went through it enough and, you know, picked all the right things and watched some of the videos here.
Well, hey, thanks for taking some time for us here today. We really appreciate it. And guys, if you want to see more of Gary's build, definitely check out his build page to get a complete breakdown of his mod list. But in the meantime, this is Gary again. Run down his setup: 2016 F-150, 18x9 fuel Anza wheel, plus 1mm offset, giving him that nice flush stance. We got the Nitto Ridge grappler, 35 1250 R18, and then making it possible is that awesome suspension setup with the Rough Country 4-inch kit, Fox coilovers, Mammoth 4-inch block, and airlift suspension bag setup. Guys, we hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and remember, for all things truck, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.